All right. Hi, everybody. It's our CFB Talk 162. It's Tuesday night. This is when we always enjoy hearing from you. So if you'd like to join that conversation, just go ahead and hit request from your Twitter app in the bottom left, and I'll be happy to let you up and we can talk college football. It's Tuesday night. We are in that wonderful stretch where there is constant football every day of the week. So before we kind of dive into the details of this show, just wanted to give some score updates. I've been following kind of in the background this Liberty Middle Tennessee State game because it's all, Conference USA's got a couple of games, so does the Fun Belt. But Liberty is undefeated. They have the easiest schedule in the country, but they are pretty exciting to watch. And Middle Tennessee had a lead on them in the third quarter, but Liberty is now gone ahead by a touchdown. It's 42-35, high-scoring affair on CBS Sports Network. Meanwhile, Jacksonville State is trailing Western Kentucky by a touchdown. Western Kentucky seemed to be the likely candidate to challenge Liberty in an eventual Conference USA title game, but Jacksonville State simply can't play in any postseason because they, like James Madison, are not able to play in a bowl or any postseason game. Same with Sam Houston, but they're probably not going to reach close to the win total at this point. And then finally, South Alabama. We actually have a reporter at South Alabama right now. He's witnessing the Southern Miss get absolutely bludgeoned. Right now, it's 41-3. So that one's uncompetitive on ESPN2. But that CBS Sports Network Liberty Middle Tennessee game and that ESPNU game between Jacksonville State and Western Kentucky look good. But I'm going to go ahead and start letting whoever wants to come up to talk. Before we get there, just a couple of other quick notes. Sorry to hear about Brock Bowers undergoing surgery. Hopefully it's nothing too serious and he'll get back on the field. He's such an exciting player. And meanwhile, another injury on a lighter note. I just read Shane Beamer, South Carolina's head coach, apparently broke his foot in frustration after the loss to Florida. He said he kicked something. He seems to be pretty, easygoing about it. You kind of feel bad for the guy. I've been a kid and kicked something as a kid that I'm pretty sure messed up my toe for a while. But yeah, hopefully it wasn't anything too serious. And but anyway, sometimes it hits us all. I see John, you're already ready to come up. I'm going to let everyone up who I can get up here. It's always great to talk to you. So John, what's going on with you?
Hey Bob, how you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. I busted my foot once kicking a wall, but I was in college and it was for a lot of different reasons. But I hope Shane's foot recovers and heals properly. My question for tonight was actually about Jimbo Fisher. Looking in this year and last season, we started Texas A&M, with that huge contract. He really had a first great couple of years, and last year with a 5-7 season. Now this year, with a near 500 record, 7 games in, I was curious if you really think that there's any danger of of him and where he is at the moment contract wise, because they have the buyout. It's huge at this point, and it's going to be pretty hard for them to go. Do you think it's a better chance of Texas A&M letting him go, or do you think there's a better chance of Jimbo actually leaving for a different school?
If I were Jimbo, I wouldn't leave for a different school because there's no school that's ever going to pay him the amount of money that Texas A&M is going to owe him. So if I'm Jimbo Fisher, I would just keep coaching until they kick me out because it's just a financial. I mean, and I think anyone in his position would do that. I mean, you're going to get a ton of money if they decide to get rid of you, or you somehow start winning and people forget. But at this point, it's looking pretty dire. And everyone the astonishing thing, by the way, is we actually sat down, a couple of us, and crunched some numbers. It would be there's his buyout. Everyone wants to talk about his buyout, but it's not just his buyout they're going to have to pay. They're going to have to pay the assistants. I'm sure with the level of talent he has on his assistant coaching staff, and while they're not the people are thrilled about, like DJ Durkin and Bobby Petrino, I mean, they may have buyouts. Some of the other staff members may have smaller buyouts, and then you're going to have to pay for the next head coach. So it could easily start to get closer and closer to a number that's even more astonishing. And I think that sometimes gets a little lost. But I don't think he's going to go to another program or anything like that. I think he'd be foolish to. I think in his position, you just keep coaching. And if they're going to can you, you take that money and run.
Yep.
It's the masterful. I mean, I don't blame them for doing that. I mean, it's the oh gosh, I can't believe his name just slipped my mind. The Notre Dame, Kansas coach. Oh my gosh, tactical advantage. Oh, I forgot his name, but Charlie Weiss. Charlie Weiss's approach. So if you can keep getting payments for the rest of your life, or at least for a long period of time, do it.
Yeah, I only mentioned the fact of him, leaving just because that's actually part of his contract. He has, he can leave, and there's really no penalty for himself for leaving. Yes, doesn't owe anything back. So it's just a weird position because it's a high pressure school. He's underperforming, but it seems like neither side can really do anything at this point. It feels like a very awkward moment for both parties at this point.
It's definitely awkward, and you feel bad for all those fans who are watching all of this, who are Aggies fans, because it's tough for them, and it's got to be weird to watch Texas doing so well, and knowing that Texas and Oklahoma's doing well too. It's not that they're not rivals either, but knowing they're joining the conference next year, this is just it's stressful, and I sympathize with them and how they must be feeling in all of this. So yeah, let's see here. I see Gator. Let's see here, Gator student. I'm going to let you up here as well. I'm going to try and get as many folks up here who'd like to join the conversation. Gator student, what's going on?
So the University of Florida owns Shane Beamer's foot, but in all seriousness, the Spurs fan base is the Cox fan base is really overreacting to him doing that. I mean, personally, if my coach punched a wall and broke his fist after a win, after a loss like that, I'd be happy. I mean, maybe that's just because I had Dan Mullen as my coach, smiling on the field after the loss. Or maybe it's because I'm a student and that's how mad I get after a loss.
Yeah, John said he did the same thing as a student.
Yeah, so I mean it's tough. I mean, personally, like, I don't know. I guess Shane does have a history of not being able to control his emotions, especially in pressers. So maybe that's what's alarming. But I mean, I like that fight in a coach. I don't think there's anything wrong. I think they played a good game and had it's jumping into college football after just like now just watching it for about 3 years so far since I've been in college. It's so weird how these fan bases react so differently. Like, let's say Spencer Rattler were to finish that last drive instead of throwing an interception and they win the game. And with that 47-second drive that they could have had, the fan base would be going crazy and there would be no talk about fire Beamer, even though their defense played just as bad as it did. And the same for Florida, really. Our defense played bad through 3 quarters until the end. So I think Shane Beamer deserves a little bit of credit at least. He needs to get a better defensive coordinator in there. But yeah, until then, the university owns his foot.
Yeah, and I like Shane Beamer a lot. So I think that was a tough loss. You have a great quarterback, and then I think Florida's just been slowly building back up. I mean, they were not as bad as it seemed at the beginning of the season. They seem to be kind of, I mean, right now they're at a healthy kind of 5-2, 3-1 conference. I'm not sure where they're going to go with the rest of the season. I'm not going to guarantee wins. Obviously, they've got a couple of really tough games. They get a break, and the world's largest outdoor cocktail party is going to be a hell of a game. Georgia,
which I'm going to for the first time ever.
Oh, really?
Which is,
oh my
it's
goodness.
It's my first away game as a Florida fan, and unfortunately my first year was Dan Mullen's last year, so I really haven't had a great experience so far. But I mean, I can't wait to go. I got the tickets before I heard about Brock's injury, but just because I think this is a decent record we're going into it with. I think it's not the least winnable game on our schedule. I think that would be LSU away this year, as their offense is just getting better with each game and our defense is getting worse with each game. But yeah, I can't wait to go there. I'm happy with the record. I think that people kind of shut us down after last year when a lot of those losses were just super close. I mean, FSU lost by 7 points at the end. Tennessee lost by 7 points both games. Just couldn't put the drive together at the end. I think the team's still like an 8-4 ceiling, which isn't great, but it's crazy how emotional everybody is in college football.
That's what makes it so fun, especially the further south you go, I feel. But I think that's great. And, that's the Georgia World's Largest Outdoor Cocktail Party. That is going to be fun regardless. I mean, I would just go in there and just soak that in, just that experience, especially as a student.
Yeah,
It's your first time going
I'm
there. I mean, I hate to say win or lose because winning would be a whole lot better. But I mean, those are the great experiences in college.
I was talking to my roommate though, and if I got to choose between winning that game and winning FSU at the end of the year, it's got to be FSU because FSU at home, they're probably going to be ranked top 3. I mean, they've got the easiest playoff path. They don't even have to play UNC or Louisville this year. They unless they go to the ACC championship. So like that would be the one, but I can't wait. I'm a Florida native, a 10th generation, and my dad is a 9th generation, and he's lived in Jax his whole life, and he finally gets to go. He's never gone.
Oh, wow.
So we got some student tickets and student guest tickets. It's going to be, I want to remember, my sister's actually at FSU, so he like goes between both the games every weekend, but it's going to be an awesome experience.
That's awesome. That sounds so perfect. I remember before my dad passed, I took him to, I'm a USC alum, but I took him to the USC UCLA game, and that was just fun to go to. Like, I think we won, but that wasn't the part that I remember. I just remember going with him. And so I hope you guys have fun. I really do.
I appreciate that. I hope we win, but either way, it'll be a great experience.
Well, thanks for joining us, man. That was great. I appreciate it.
No problem. Sorry if I took.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. Let's hear Ski Masks Murphy. What's going on with you, man?
Thanks for pulling me up. I just wanted to say, well, 2 things. The first thing is this weekend is shaping up to be probably like one of the perfect schedules as far as playoff impact goes. Like the schedule just lines up that all those big games sort of fall in line at 12 o'clock, then 3:30, then 8 o'clock, so you can see it all. I just wanted to say that. And then the biggest thing I want to say is I don't know if anyone got to see it, but Tez Walker got his eligibility back and immediately made an instant impact and put UMC over the top over Miami.
Oh, yeah. I think everyone realized why they were so bullish on getting him to play. I mean, part of it was like, because you always wonder, too, I mean, is it a bit of, and I don't mean to, I really respect Mac Brown, but at the same time, you always wonder, well, is there also that element of, the benefit to the team, just not just the honor of the thing, or is there some practical use for the guy? And wow, did he show what he can do. So yeah, no, I think that's been a great addition for UNC, for real. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing, I think, if anything, North Carolina, and I think it's good to kind of be, this season it seems it's good to not be as noticeable. But I'm really curious. North Carolina is looking better, and they're kind of still quietly being undefeated. I think maybe it's because they haven't had as much of a marquee game yet, and I think that Miami game had the luster taken off of it thanks to Miami's screw up the previous week with the knee. That was an inadvertent cough, but perfectly timed. But then you look what happened to Louisville. Everyone notices him after they beat Notre Dame, and then Pitt, man. That's always how it turns out. No, excuse me. But I just also, before I forget, and one thing I wanted to bring up, because this is one of those stories I love HBCU game day. And I'd just like to toss in a couple of headlines that have come across before I go to the next caller. One of the mysterious, it seemed like kind of a out of nowhere firing, but I admit I don't pay close attention to D2 football. But St. Augustine let go of their head coach, who was just in his first year, Howard Feggins. And, he went 0-7, but his losses were all surprisingly close, especially when you compared how St. Augustine, which ain't a great D2 program, was doing. They had like one win the last 2 seasons and all pretty big blowouts. And they lost 3 of his games by like less than a score. I mean, it was not looking bad, but I'm like, why did they fire him so quickly? And then on Monday, he gave a presser. And Stephen J. Gaither, who, again, I love HBCU game day, probably the best. I mean, again, this is pre-Dion. Like, this is the website to go to, I think, for finding out what's going on at HBCU. But he wrote an interesting article because this, again, it's unusual because the now ex-head coach holds a press conference, and some of his players were there in support. And he basically outlined all the problems that he was dealing with. And the more, he was talking about the fact that I guess they had to resod the field and never bothered to give the team a place to practice. So they were practicing on concrete for a little while. And due to unpaid bills, they couldn't get proper equipment. They didn't have a full-time athletic trainer. So finally he had to arrange a practice field himself with the county. And then the school wasn't helping him get the proof of insurance he needed to get a practice field. So finally, again, just realizing he wasn't getting any kind of feedback from the administration, he threatened to forfeit a game. And that got some reaction from the administration. But then also it seems like they were just looking now for an opportunity to let him go, which is just a mess. So that whole side story, I think it's not been as noticed because, again, it's D2 football already. But that is one of the more interesting stories I've seen this week. And I seems like a decent coach. Again, the defense that he's putting out there for a team that had not had any in the previous couple of seasons, it would just struck me immediately. So I hope he finds somewhere that can give him support. One more funny little story. This one's to change it up. One of the reporters, the Ohio State beat writer, noticed that Purdue, during their game, there was a break, so they had a student do a field goal challenge, and he made a 40-yard field goal during a timeout. And then the Boilermakers' real kicker came out and missed a 39-yard field goal. To be fair, there's a whole lot of difference in being a fan just kicking a ball without a whole team running at you. So we'll be credit to that. I mean, having any defense run at you, or any, I'm just going to say it's a little different than when you have a bunch of guys running at you. But that still was kind of a funny thing. Before I go to the next caller, I see two hands up. Ski Mask Smurfy and then John. What's going on?
Oh, John was first. I'll let him go.
Okay, sure.
Appreciate it. I was not aware of that the story out of St. Augustine. That is absolutely insane. I mean, it's extremely concerning. I mean, is there no blowback for the school to get for this? I mean, having guys play on concrete and putting your player's safety in that regard, or your student safety like that. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, the problem is the amount of pressure isn't going to be that great. It's not, as long as it's always been a tough situation for a lot of programs, and HBCUs most certainly have had to deal with it. I think part of the benefit of when Dion was at Jackson State is that he drew some of that, and then Ed Reed, to a later extent, also brought some attention to some of the issues, and those were FCS programs. So we're now going a division below that, and it's difficult. So there have been again, there's a lot. It's a very complicated issue with the amount of finances. The schools themselves they've got to keep their own lights on. So it's not like, I wouldn't say that I would hesitate to say that there's any malice in any of it. It's more like just being overwhelmed with probably some of the administrative tasks at hand. But Ski Mask Smurfy, I know you may have some thoughts on this.
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as the whole complication with HBCUs, excuse me, it's been sort of a long-running thing. It sort of pops its head up every once in a while. Even when I was attending Morehouse College, another HBCU, we had our own sort of problems. We did have a period of time where we were getting the field resodded, but luckily there was like a middle school close enough down the street that the team could go to. But the one problem they also did have was just insurance. The insurance rates for football have gone basically sky high since the whole concussion thing happened. And that's why like a lot of youth programs sort of shut down. But also each HBCU sort of had their run-in with financing and stuff. ESPN had basically a little series documenting North Carolina Central's basketball team and how sort of they travel around like for a month basically to play all these big schools to get funding for all the rest of the sports. And then I remember there was a period of time as well with Grambling State, their football program, which is sort of like the HBCU football program, even they were having complications and they did have the team themselves forfeit again.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. I remember the 2013 game, the 2013 season where Grambling, the players actually mutinied because of the conditions, and they had to, I think it was Missouri Valley State it was Jackson State, now that I remember, where they actually had to forfeit the game because the team refused to go over the conditions of the program.
Yeah, and I remember specifically one of the things that players were pointing out was that their pads and jerseys weren't getting washed, which is a very significant thing. Because when I was in high school, we had one of the schools in the area had a MERS or SARS outbreak, whichever one it is, due to uncleanliness of their equipment. So they were legitimate in their strike.
I just saw actually Stephen J. Gaither, the person who runs HBCU Game Day in our audience, put his hand up, and I had to let him up immediately, only because this is so pertinent to what we're talking about. Stephen, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing today?
Good. It's great to hear from you. I was wonderful. I was actually thinking, I haven't done guests very often this season at all, and you were a guest with us 2 times last season, and it's always a pleasure hearing from you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I appreciate you for bringing bringing up this issue. It's unfortunate. And I think if this was an isolated incident, this would be kind of one thing, but this is something just briefly for folks who don't know. St. Augustine's University in Charlotte in Raleigh is an HBCU. It's founded in the 1870s, I believe. It's one of 2 private HBCUs in the Raleigh area. So obviously there's you've got so many different levels of schools in that area. You've got UNC and NC State right there. You've got so many of the FCS programs, and you have the other Division twos, and so they didn't have a football program for a long time. They got rid of it for I think 50 or so years, and then they brought it back in the 2000s. Had some success, but ran into funding problems probably about a decade ago, and it started as a slow decline. But they've had 4 coaches over the last 5 years, and kind of each time one of the coaches would get there and they would get let go, and they would start to you hear whispers about what's going on. It's really bigger than athletics. Unfortunately, the school has, it's struggling to survive. You're in a state where, again, you've got so many schools, just period, so many large state schools like North Carolina State. And then you've got, even, UNC Charlotte, UNC Greensboro, and then you've got your App States, you've got your ECUs, all of those schools, and then you get to your FCS level. So many schools, and as a small private HBCU, the cost of attendance is not cheap, and they're struggling to compete. And so one of the things that's been brought up is that actually football for them, having a football program, I think their enrollment has fluctuated between maybe 11, as low as 1,100, and maybe as high as maybe 14 or 1,500. Having those 100 or so football players that are there, and most of them are paying. It's important for them to have that revenue wise, to keep the school open. Unfortunately, and it's an unfortunate situation, and every coach that gets there, they get there, they know that it's bad, and I don't think they understand how difficult it is. Just as you say, logistically, and again, it's not necessarily that people don't care. It's like you say, the system being overwhelmed, and so many things. But every coach gets there and they feel like they're going to try to overcome it, and they seem like they're all there for great reasons. They're actually all there for the student athletes. But it's like firing a coach. How is that going to help anything? Is it going to improve anything? They'll be looking for their 5th coach in almost 5 seasons pretty soon. So it's a tough situation there, but so I took the story on yesterday, and then I wanted to. I did a live video where I kind of tried to give some context around it. Not all HBCUs are created equal. Not all HBCUs are struggling to that point. But there are, again, some of the smaller private schools that definitely have to rely on athletics actually as a way to stay open enrollment wise. So it's a pretty complicated story, probably more so complicated than even I understand, but I'm trying to, understand more of it to make sense of it all. So,
well, I really
I
appreciate
appreciate you
that
guys.
you drew a light to that, Stephen. I mean, again, I love HBCU Game Day, and I encourage people who are interested in it to follow that. I see a couple of hands up. Let's see. I saw Gator student first, then Ski Masks Murphy, then John, and then I'd love to get some other new folks up here as well.
Mine's a little unrelated, so I don't want to change the topic if you guys are still talking about it.
Cool. So why don't we hold on that for 1 second, Gator student? I promise to get to you. Ski Masks Murphy.
Oh yes, I just wanted to go off Steven's point of that, the school is struggling with funding and that I remember specifically, I believe it's Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman recently within like the past year sort of got their lawsuit moving through the courts and sort of showed that basically like the HBCUs in the state of Florida have been underfunded for like the past 3 to 4 decades by about like $1 billion versus what they should have been
I saw
owed.
that.
And that these are the things that sort of lead to the programs sort of not being the way they need to be at St. Augustine, Grambling State, even Bethune-Cookman, and Jackson State that we saw with Ed Reed and Dion. So these things are not sort of like just coming out of nowhere. It's sort of been building and getting to this point, unfortunately.
Absolutely. John, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was going to say, thank you to Stephen, for speaking about this. I'll be honest, I'm unfortunately a little ignorant on the subject matter of HBCUs. That's why I just gave you a follow too, so I can be a little more educated about what's going on, and with these programs. Stephen, I just had a quick question for you. I mean, what do you think can be done to help these schools with these financial problems? I mean, is there anything that can be done? I mean, I'm ignorant, unfortunately, on the subject, so I would love to just hear what your feelings are about what could be done to help these these programs.
In the case of St. Aug, it's difficult. There are them and there are a couple other schools, mostly in Division II, but even, Bethune-Cookman is a private school as well. So, it's tough for them because their business model, they rely on students enrollment and it's more expensive to go to St. Augustine's than it is to go to any of those power, and I don't want to. I haven't read everybody's tuition, but expense wise, it's just as expensive to go there as it is to probably to any of the Power Five schools that are in there in the state, other than maybe obviously
100%, 100%,
other than Wake Forest or Duke, which are of course private. So, but I mean, again. So student wise, just in general, you're competing against again North Carolina State, UNC Charlotte, UNC Greensboro, Appalachian State, East Carolina. So it's going to be tough for those schools. Again, we're talking about sports, but it's tough for them to just stay in business. So it's tough with their business model. I don't know. Smarter than minds than myself have had to try to deal with this question. For those small private schools, it's going to be really tough. But you hope for, some of the public schools, again, the Florida A&Ms, the Jackson States, they are what's known as land grant institutions, and there are, historically, so basically like North Carolina. North Carolina State is an agricultural, is basically the state of North Carolina created North Carolina State and North Carolina A&T for the same reason and under the same act, if I'm not mistaken. But of course, North Carolina A&T hasn't gotten nearly the funding that North Carolina State has gotten. So there's that disparity there. Will they ever get that money? I doubt it. But the Maryland HBCUs actually had to sue to get some level of money that they were owed. So it's a tough situation again for those private schools. They're really coming down to having a benefactor that will, some benefactors that will pour into the school. Take too much time on it, but the new Jamie Foxx movie, The Burial, is about Willie Gary, who's the attorney. Attorney who helps take down big businesses that are taking advantage of the little guy. He's a former Shaw University football player who, again, Shaw is the other private HBCU in Raleigh who also didn't have football for a long time until he came along and really helped fund that program in its early days. and put money behind it. So it's a tough road to hoe, especially for the private, the small private HBCUs. But we'll just have to continue to watch and see. And obviously with all of these things, there's definitely things that could be fixed in all these situations. But overridingly, is the resources and just being overwhelmed with the infrastructure. So I really wish I had an answer, but it's a huge problem. But we'll continue to follow it on the HBCU game day end for sure.
Well,
of course, and yeah, and thank you, Steve. I do appreciate it, man.
yeah, thanks, Stephen. And again, for those of you who get interested in HBCU football at FCS and D2 and just the entire thing, I really recommend HBCU Game Day. And it was great to have Stephen pop up. That was a great surprise, and I'm always happy to have you. Gator student, I know, just to change gears a little bit, I know you wanted to ask a question, and then I'd love to let up some new folks as well.
Yeah, cool. I'll ask this and then I'll dip to leave some more room. First of all, Bethune-Cookman, that's in my hometown. I want to go back there and see a LJ McCray game. He's a 5-star recruit. Florida's recruiting. I don't know if he goes to us, Florida State or Georgia, but that's back in my hometown. And him and Zay Mincy are coming out of Mainland High School. It's just a really talented area in Daytona Beach there. But anyways, my question for you guys, I haven't really quite thought about it till after each game, but the new 2-minute rule at the end of each half for clock stoppage while moving the chains and after going out of bounds. Have you guys noticed any I don't know, any play calling differences? I've seen Napier pass the ball a lot more, just like the entire game, I think, rather than run heavy the entire year. Because he switched to a little more pass heavy this last game because he got a lot of scrutiny, even from head ball coach. But even prior to that, this season, the ball's gone in the air a lot more, and I think, and I think it's for clock management. I don't know if you guys have noticed anything on this end, because I know the clock's running a lot faster, and I know we aren't getting as much college football.
Yeah, we're definitely not getting as much college football. I admit I haven't paid as close attention to the strategy changes, but if someone has, by all means, would love to have your thoughts on that. But it's one of those changes, and the idea of reducing the amount of game time, which of course has also seen an increase in commercials. But that is. We'll see. I mean, the first season's always fascinating when after there's a rule change like that. We'll see where it shakes out and how people develop ways to take full advantage of it, because everyone is trying to. I wanted to go ahead and move on. Cornwall Buttersworth, thanks for joining us. You've been really patient. All of you who are in the queue have been patient, and I'll try to get to everyone.
Thank you, man.
Thanks so much, Gator student. So what's up? What's on your mind, Cornwall Buttersworth? And the mute button's in the bottom left, which is, don't worry, I've had to say that a billion times over the last 160 shows. Oh, looks like it dropped him. Oh, goodness. Oh, no, wait, no, he's requested again. I see it. Sometimes the system gets weird when somebody has tried to come up and then has been waiting for a while. So let's see. If you want to unmute, would love to hear from you. Dr. Buttersworth.
Oh, my bad, man.
Shit. No, don't worry. There you are. Now I hear you. No.
Yeah, it kept on cutting me out back and forth, man.
Oh, I've seen it all, and I believe it. Don't worry. It's not you.
Now, what's going on, man? Give me 1 second. Give me like 2 minutes, and I'll just wanted to talk. I'm a Penn State guy, so just give me 1 second.
Yeah, no.
Boo.
So let's see. While we're letting him to grab his stuff, let me. I see. Thak, I think you were also in the queue, and I'll let you up here, and I would love to hear from you as well. Thak, how are you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, Bobak? How are you?
I'm good. Just another wonderful. We're about halfway through the season. Lots of stuff going on at so many levels.
It's been a lot of fun, dude. Middle Tennessee just absolutely pissed that game away with some of the worst, probably the worst fourth down play call I've seen. And a pretty bad third down play call, too, as well.
I just saw that went final. Yeah, 42-35 Liberty. Liberty was trailing when I first started paying attention to that game.
Yeah, it was not pretty. Go watch the last two Middle Tennessee State offensive plays. Had a chance to tie the game, pissed it away. Liberty goes 7-0. Looks like they didn't need Hugh Freeze at all. But yeah, I just want to say there were a lot of people that doubted the Missouri Tigers, didn't they? Didn't they, Bobak? A lot of people doubted
Oh
them.
my goodness. It is fun to watch them play right now. I mean, I don't know what the roof is for Mizzou. I have no idea.
I don't know either.
Yeah, it's like I think at this point, have we reached a point where I think Mizzou fans are just enjoying the ride? Because this is great. This is wonderful. I mean, the LSU game, and the thing is, LSU game, I'm still not sure. Like if they kept playing each other, I don't know who would win each game. I think that was just how that game shook out. But seeing what they did at Kentucky, I'm looking forward to seeing how they handle South Carolina this weekend. Because South Carolina, we were just talking about them earlier, is will Shane Beamer break his other foot? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I hope not. I don't know if you guys are familiar on the Gamecock Twitter space, but the leading Gamecock Twitter guy had unfortunately he might have passed away after the Florida game. We haven't heard from him since. So Gamecock Dave, if you're out there, please respond. We need the Gamecocks definitely need him for for the game against Missouri on Saturday.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully he's fine. Maybe he's just taking a social media break. But
I hope so too. He's a great guy. It's hard to hate the Gamecocks fans. Those guys are funny. They're a funny bunch, and unfortunately, they picked a terrible name for their town because even though they're very great, the town of Columbia, South Carolina, is not the true town of Columbia. That would be Columbia, Missouri. So it's officially Gamecock hate week for all of them. But man, I tell you, I think at the start of the season, I said I was like, man, I'd be happy if we were just the Iowa. We got, but now you look at Iowa, they might be 11-0 or 10-0. Sorry, not 11-0. That'd be scary, but they might be 10-0.
Well, they would be. They do have one loss. The Penn State did clock them pretty hard.
One loss. Sorry, yeah. No, but they actually might go to a Big Ten championship, which is really scary. Even though the Mizzou punter had more yards than the entire Iowa receiving corps, which is really scary.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to think that they were that one touchdown that they ripped off, the 80-something yard touchdown, and the rest of it was just, man, Iowa. I mean, and Iowa has managed to take their weakness and turn it into like the ultimate sicko strength. Like people now are buying it. The more they keep winning, the more people are just loving it. And I was just imagining, the odds of this are so low, I can say it with a sense of humor. But imagine Iowa completely wins out. If they win out, they'd be a one-loss Big Ten champ. They'd probably end up in the playoff. Imagine if they end up like the TCU spot where they somehow stumble into the championship game. I think the press box would have a real trouble being objective, only because everyone would be like trying to still keep track of Brian Ferentz's need to score. Like in order to
325.
Can you imagine? It's like he's got to score like 70 points against Georgia in order to keep that up. People would do that. And
if not, he's going to fire his own kid.
It would end up being like the most. So that for that reason, I kind of hope they make it.
I do too. I was listening to the Cover 3 guys. The CBS sports guys were debating this exact topic the other day during their podcast. And I was cracking up imagining because I live with my old man went to Iowa and my kid brother goes to Iowa, so I live with Iowa fans. So that whole scenario. I mean, do you even take a one-loss Big Ten champion Iowa, who likely beat probably Michigan in the Big Ten championship in the playoff? I think you do, but that's a tough ad.
Don't wish that evil on
ESPN would go berserk. The ratings for that playoff would be either 0 or just people like mortified intrigue just to I don't know. It'd be terrible.
if they can win the Big Ten, just let them win it
Yeah,
all. We need it. We need
they,
a
they need it.
championship.
But then they have to deal with Brian Ferentz for probably another decade.
yeah. At that point, he gets crowned. I want to. Hey, Cornwall Buttersworth, did you want to be? Can you jump in now? Have you had a chance to?
Oh yeah, my
No,
bad,
it's
man.
all
I
right.
didn't
Don't
want
worry
to
about
interrupt
it.
like that. No, that was awesome. The Iowa thing still cracking me up. I think I see it every week. What is it, like how many points they need to score and everything like that? Again, I mean, I went to Penn State, so seeing that, I didn't even expect us to, do that. But I'm still shell shocked that I think Iowa's defense is like they've played, I think, like 515 snaps. And they're still doing pretty solid, especially defensively. But I just feel so bad because I mean, compared to the rest, I think what is it? I mean, most teams are in the probably like plus 300. I think it's like 390, something around that. But they're out there just all the time. So you kind of got to give them credit where it's due. But definitely very sicko committee team. But no, I just kind of wanted to just speak about, obviously, being a Penn State guy, we got a tough game, this week. And I kind of wanted to just hear, your ends. I know I've talked about it so many times, and I kind of just look at it, our defensive line, Manny Diaz, that being kind of more of the show, which you really haven't seen of a Penn State team defensively kind of, like I said, I feel very confident with this game, yet at the same time, I have my reasons of doubts, just because it's at Ohio State and we know kind of the history of that. But I just wanted to kind of hear, either,
Yeah.
yourself or even the other outsiders, what's your thoughts on that game?
It's really interesting because I think everyone still remembers it was a 2018, the we're not yet elite speech that came after the game. And I think that's always been kind of this kind of burden that has kind of followed Penn State around a little bit. But at the same time, you look at the team now, and it seems like the defense is just so amazing. I mean, we were just talking about Iowa. I mean, sure, it was Iowa they shut out, but I mean, and potentially permanently ruined Brian Ferentz's chances of getting that regular scoring average. But jokes aside, I mean, they seem as strong as they've ever been. This almost returning 14 starters, right after they won the Rose Bowl. And I think it was like the first Rose Bowl win, I think, since the 90s, if I'm right there. And so the talent is there. Ohio State is still strong, and they're still capable of winning out. Like I think the argument I've heard the best, it's like when you look at the top 10 teams, you could easily make a case for any of them making the playoff now. There isn't like two or three teams that they're going to make it no matter what. And then we'll see who fills out the rest of the spots. It seems like any of these teams have a shot, and no one would be shocked whichever four I think made it at the rate we are now. And that kind of parity that we see seems to strengthen, the Penn State, because I mean they look great right now. I think the offense. I still remember I watched that press conference clip where somebody asked why they're not why Aller isn't chucking it deep all the time, and I thought that was a great response. That was a great response by Franklin, but.
Yeah, he just wants to heave it deep. Like,
it's just like, okay, cool. There's strategy to this sport. It isn't just like 4 hertz or whatever, I think Penn State has a real chance right now. And this the only thing that I think the one spot that I think makes me hesitate is excuse me, sorry, 1 second, I got a cough coming on. Sorry. Oh boy, that was sorry about that. That's what happens when you talk constantly for a day. But I think the one thing that's got me hesitating a little bit is that the game is not going to be is going to be at Ohio State. That's the one thing that's got me hesitant, because that's a tough place. But Penn State seems to have the ability. I mean, I don't know who I would pick. I think they're as well matched as they ever have been, and Penn State, if they're going to do it, this would be a strong year to do it. But I hate it. I can't give a guarantee on anything right now. I just think they're so deep right now.
Oh no, it's not going to be a guarantee. I mean, it's going to be. I think it's going to come down. I mean, the Vegas line is at 4.5, and I think it's going to come down to a field goal. I would be shocked if it's a 7-point game or anything like that. I just kind of, it resembles a lot of like that Notre Dame game to me. Notre Dame, Ohio State. But yeah, I think the defense is going to be kind of the show out. It's interesting to me. I'm not sure if anyone else kind of just saw the trend, at least with what Vegas had the line for the total was at 51.5 and it opened, and now it's already at 46.5. So that kind of got stemmed down just from, again, what I'm kind of predicting as a defensive, battle. It's going to be a hell of a game. And maybe what Chris Collinsworth always says, the team that makes the less mistakes is probably going to win the game. And I can kind of, agree in this standpoint. But and it just seems to me like Kyle McCord, like we saw what he did against Notre Dame, and that drive was phenomenal. Yet that last drive that he did was great. Yet there's also been times too where he's not looked so great. And again, on our side too, we had Drew Aller. Everyone knows what is it, 5.6 yards per attempt. Which isn't a pretty number compared to the most. Our offense is not flashy. It's nothing like that. But no, I can't wait. I think it's definitely gonna be a battle. But yeah,
Yeah.
to backtrack at the beginning what I said, no, I've just never felt this confident. Last year we played them at home. Our defense played great. Our offense played great, except when we had 4 turnovers for our quarterback, and that definitely hurt. And JTT had probably the best quarter I've ever seen from a defensive end.
He's ridiculous.
In quite some
He's
time.
absolutely ridiculous. I think that's going to be the interesting thing. Can they put so much pressure on McCord that he's not CJ? So I mean, he's good though. He's not terrible, and that's the thing. Can they put enough pressure on him and keep it out of Marvin Harrison's hands? And at the same time, on offense, I mean, I know they're not checking it deep, but it seems like if you can, that might be an area of weakness I've seen in some of the analysis on and how you could go after Ohio State. So if Penn State's going to have a chance, maybe one of those two directions. It may not have to be like a stellar game, but I mean, I think it would have to be a stellar game, but I don't think you need necessarily play beyond where they've been playing before. Just the question is, can they take advantage of some of those spots? Because Ohio State's still very capable. I agree with Vegas. Like that is a very hard game to pick, and I think I'm excited to see how that game's going to pan out. It's been just exciting game after exciting game this season so far with some of these matchups in the last. For the top games have ended up being great. We had the great Red River rivalry. We had Oregon, Washington, and I'm hoping Penn State, Ohio State kind of keeps this great theme going on of great top matchups coming week after week. I mean, we've been really lucky with these shaping up. Ski Masks Murphy, I know you wanted to add something, and then I'll go over to Elizabeth Palmer.
No, I just wanted to wish Dr. Butterworth good luck this weekend, because this basically is going to determine how the rest of the Big Ten plays out. So good luck to Penn State.
Who ends up?
Oh yeah, man. This game has a lot of implications, especially. I mean, obviously, Big Ten title, playoff titles. I mean, playoff championships, or not playoff championship, playoff aspirations. It could be the forefront.
Which team has to challenge and stop Iowa? That's going to be which team gets to have the opportunity to play in the Big Ten championship against those Hawkeyes. But absolutely, man. Thanks for joining us. That was great. Let's see here. I want to what's up, Elizabeth? How are you?
Hi, Bobak. I'm doing very well. Just wanted to, as you know, I'm a huge Razorback fan, but I wanted to first circle back to the first speaker regarding Jimbo. I have a lot of friends that are A&M fans, and there is no way Petrino is calling the plays right now. That's just my belief. I could be wrong, but what are your thoughts on that? Is Jimbo still taking control?
I do. The one thing I'm very much looking forward to is after this season is done, particularly if he's let go, the write-ups that are going to come up about what's been going on behind the scenes, because I've heard those arguments that Jimbo's the one still calling the plays, or is it somewhere? I wouldn't be surprised if it's somewhere in between. Like he's not giving the reins completely free reign. So it's
I would agree.
So the tension, I'm waiting. I wouldn't be shocked if we heard like they were arguing, or Petrino just finally gave up or did something. Like I'm waiting to hear stuff, because this is such a mess that the tea is going to be spectacular afterwards.
It's too quiet. There's something going on, and there's definitely something that these don't seem like Petrino plays to me. And he was magnificent when he was at Arkansas, and it seems like the same offense as it was last year for A&M, and my A&M friends agree with me. So I'm just I thought that was interesting that not seeing a lot of change. And I really do like the Aggies. So, and second thought regarding my Arkansas Razorbacks. So we've played 7 games, and only 2 of those were at home in Fayetteville. We've lost by 3, 12, 7, and 3 against LSU, A&M, Ole Miss, and Bama. And that makes a 17th straight loss to Alabama. I do think our team has potential. My concern goes back to the O-line. And I'm wondering, with many head coaches, how long do you give their assistant coaches time to develop as far as an O-line coach, an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator? I'm just curious about that. What are your thoughts?
Well, certainly there have been examples of coaches just ejecting their staff almost immediately. I mean, their assistants almost immediately, either at the end of a first season or even partway through the season. I forgot there was somebody who just fired their offensive coordinator in the middle of the season. Was it Indiana? I can't remember, but
yeah, I just heard of that too.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, I know Pittman's. I mean, they've got a new DC, don't they? I think didn't they switch it out?
Correct. The DC is doing amazing. Yeah, he's new, and we have like one of our transfers, Landon Jackson. He transferred from LSU. He's 6'7", 281 pounds, and I think he had like 11 tackles total and 3.5 on as far as the sacks. So against Alabama, I mean, so that was pretty impressive. I mean, he was playing inspired. So
yeah, you're right. Arkansas keeps getting so close and just falling short against serious talent.
It feels like that other team up north near Omaha that like has so many moral victories.
Gosh, are they the Nebraska of the SEC right now? Is that what you're saying? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh man. Oh no.
Thanks for picking that up.
I have a very warm spot in my heart for Arkansas. I mean, it wasn't the fact that I went to a game where USC absolutely blew out Arkansas, but I just had such a great time in Fayetteville. Maybe that is coloring my eyes on that. Is that it was
no, and I had some friends that are diehard USC fans that went to Arkansas, and they said the fans were so gracious. I mean, you guys killed us, it was very very good as far as the fans. Were very gracious across the board.
Yeah, I had a great time. I drove down because I live in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, so I actually just drove straight down and spent the night. I couldn't get a hotel room in Fayetteville, so I had to spend the night before in Branson, which was, I thought The Simpsons absolutely nailed it. It is Las Vegas if it were run by Ned Flanders. Not really my vibe because I actually like adult Vegas. And then I had to go back, and I think Springfield, Missouri is where I spent the night. I got there at 3 a.m. after the game, and then just found a hotel and spent the night. Oh my goodness!
Wow! Please tell me you experienced Dixon Street at all.
I did. I walked around a bit. I enjoyed it a lot, and I even went up to Walton's Five and Dime because I mean, if you're in the neighborhood, you got to say you saw. And I saw Thorn Crown Chapel outside of Eureka Springs because I'm an architecture nut, and I saw that really scary statue of Jesus in Eureka Springs. Thing is, if I'm not joking, folks, look it up. After I saw that statue, I said there's some statues where if they get possessed like Ghostbusters 2, they're going to come alive and they're going to be cool, like the Statue of Liberty. There's some statues where you're convinced if they come alive, we're all doomed. That statue in Eureka Springs, if it came alive, the eyes are going to turn red and we're all doomed. That's all I got to say. That thing absolutely is striking.
All right.
But thanks for joining us, Elizabeth. Awesome. I really appreciate it.
Oh, certainly. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, John, you got a comment, and then I'm going to let up James Walker.
Yeah. Just really quickly, speaking of Texas A&M, I was just kind of curious about your. I saw a tweet from you guys earlier today about Texas A&M's meal plan, or
oh my gosh, plan? Yes, that was from and all credit due. That was quoted from Message Board Geniuses. So again, Message Board Geniuses. Let's take that with a grain of salt. But apparently there's this whole conversation that not many people. Again, this is a quote from there. Not many people know this, but Texas A&M hired a new nutrition coordinator, and they utilize grains much more than protein. And the theory is that by eating more grains, the players have more stamina. The problem is that what they are ingesting is causing gas, and it's not typical everyday gas. This is chronic and leads to lots of problems, including fatigue. Several folks with inside knowledge of the program have told me, this is on Message Board Geniuses, that there is a real problem, and the players have complained about it. It's an intestinal issue, and the type of gas is not normal. When you have players passing gas literally every play, that is a problem. I think you could tell in the fourth quarter that the Aggies were struggling. The training table and nutrition is vital to any team's success. That is the idea of blaming nutrition and farting too much for Texas A&M struggles was one of the more humorous things that I have seen. And it, again, that one, probably a troll. Some people are assuming when you have Texas fans coming out and saying like, one seems like a troll, but who knows? It was one of those funny kind of things that popped out there. And I just wanted to, since you brought it up, John, I thought I had that ready to go because it was such a wild and wacky post that I know my colleagues tweeted that one out. Let's see here. James Walker, what's going on? Let's see here, James. We were able to let you up there. I know it kicked you off for a second, and I tried letting you back up. All right, we'll let that one. We'll see if that fixes itself. Let me see here. Oh, it looks like you're in the. Just tried to add you again, James. Let me know if you can talk. Otherwise, I'm also going to let up Nate. And we'll see if we can sort that out. Sometimes this has been forever since we've done. Gosh, 100. I mean, this is Twitter 160. RCFB Talk 162. We've done almost all of them on Twitter. So for years we've had all kinds of issues. So nothing's new here. What's up, Nate?
Hey, how you doing? I'm good. Just watching the end of this South Alabama beatdown. But I wanted to talk about Iowa. I know you guys kind of already started alluding to it, unfortunately. But so right now I have the ESPN playoff predictor up, and there's 14 teams. The two lowest percentage are SC at 2%, LSU at 2% at 5-2. And like I mean, I know it's like it's been fun like poking at it and all that stuff, but I'm kind of curious like what would actually make it happen, right? Like imagine if Texas, went out and beat Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game, so now they're both one loss. Maybe even something like Alabama beats Georgia and wins out. USC goes and beats Washington in the Pac-12, and then Iowa goes and wins the Big 10. Like, is there really an opportunity for them to get there in a situation like that, or does it got to be something really like weird for them to get in?
If they manage to win out, if Iowa were to somehow manage to completely win out and be the one-loss Big Ten champion, I think they may have a shot. I mean, sure, it's possible a few things might have to fall their way, but I think as a champion, they would almost have to go in, only because the Big Ten is still, it's still the Big Ten. I would be shocked if a Big Ten champ didn't get in, especially if the other teams are strong and their only loss was to them. I mean, that Penn State loss, though, would still seem really strange. One thing that's going to set the tone of all of this is at the end of this month. It's actually this year literally is going to fall on Halloween. We're going to get the first college football playoff ranking. And that always tends to rejiggle everything up because those guys, the men and women, they get together, they kind of re-rank based on what their opinions are. So we might start to see, because again, as I've said, the top 10, especially any of them, I think really more than top 10. I mean, Alabama's number 11, and if they made the playoff, I don't think anyone would be shocked, right? But I think they're going to resort based on who they think is stronger. Will we see Michigan go up higher? Will we see Washington go up higher after that game they had with Oregon? Likewise, Oklahoma with Texas. And then we'll probably start to see the AP adjust their own rankings to that. But the only reason I say that is then we're going to start to see who they could beat and who they could push them up. To be fair, Iowa's biggest weakness right now is going to be that the rest of the Big Ten West, which is also their strength, which is probably why they're going to end up in the Big Ten championship game, because the rest of their opponents are not good. I mean, you got what? Minnesota at Northwestern, Rutgers, Illinois, and at Nebraska. None of those are really going to do anything for their strength of schedule. The only team they played that strong absolutely obliterated them with Penn State. So, but at the same time, if they somehow manage to get into that Big Ten title game and win, it's going to be awkward. But I agree. I think the more I'm saying it out, you need some other things to fall their way, because if you get a couple of more undefeated teams, would that end up with the Big Ten being left out? I don't know. I mean, or would they just go with an at-large team? I'm not sure.
Yeah. And I don't know, some people might disagree with this. I've always been, on the side of, if you win all your games, or, most of them, and you get a championship, like, you should be in. Like, people might not like this take, but I think even with TCU getting destroyed in the national championship game, I think they still belong to be in the playoff last year. And then the same thing with, like, Cincinnati a few years before that. But it's just really hard with Iowa because, like you said, the rest of their schedule, there's not much left there. And then just how much that offense has struggled. It's like, their defense, yeah, really good, but really, like, they just can't score very much,
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they're just destined to go get blown out again in the Big Ten championship game. That's unfortunately where it seems to be headed, but it'll be fun to watch the whole time, and then to see whoever they get. I actually would then want to see who their bowl match is, because that's going to be extremely entertaining. Because then you're going to get some team, hopefully from the SEC, just someone who just does not know what to do.
It's going to be Washington versus Iowa.
Yeah, just
in the Rose
Bowl. Yes.
USC versus Iowa would actually.
Oh gosh. Oh man.
I would not.
As a USC fan, it would be horrible. But yes, I mean, because we'd get probably obliterated and embarrassed, because that's our lot in life. Apparently, we're like we're the punchline team, but we've always been that in a way. Like, I get it. When you're a USC fan, people love that. So.
And I will say, I am rooting for Iowa to win out, because I want to see the chaos. I think the whole thing with Iowa this year is nuts, and I just want to see what happens.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us, Nate. Ski Masks Murphy, I know you wanted to add something real quick.
I was just going to say, we got to stop wishing this evil of Iowa winning out upon us, because it's going to backfire majorly for all of us as fans. But also, I was just going to say, I mean, TCU lost their championship last year to a 2-loss team, and the pieces fell into place that they still made the playoff. I was going to say the same thing happened the year before Cincinnati to make it in. So nothing's too far-fetched, because, I mean, like, anything falling into place. Like, first year was TCU Baylor getting jumped over out of nowhere. So who knows how these 13 people are going to vote. So if Iowa wins out, there's a good chance that we could see pure sicko football at its most.
But really, going off of what you just said, I think if Iowa managed to somehow win out and was the only loss for the Big Ten champ, if it were Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State, then they might do the TCU thing and just put one of those teams in. But I don't know. Who knows? Hopefully, depending on where you sit, that'll be an interesting thing to see if we actually get to that point. But that there's a lot that has to be played before we do. Let's see here. Gamecock Superman, I'm going to let you up. What's up? And it's so funny. I'm talking knowing that he's not going to hear. Now you can probably hear me, Gamecock Superman. Would love to hear from you. What's going on?
How's it going, man? This Saturday hurt my feelings a lot.
I can imagine, but is your foot okay? That's a question I have for you.
I was down bad. My foot is okay. I unfortunately we can't say the same thing about our coach, but yeah, it's not great over here in Gamecock world. Just as you can probably tell.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, and I've heard it's been really tough for a lot of folks. Because it's so funny. We actually had a Florida fan on earlier, and he was like, "Man, they are really taking this one badly." And he wasn't being a jerk at all. He was actually being very sympathetic towards Gamecock fans. And to hear you now, it's like, man, he was not kidding. That was a tough loss for a lot of y'all.
Well, I mean, the only thing I can really think is there is kind of a pathway to get to bowl eligibility. Most of our fans kind of just think we'll go 4-8 and lose to every SEC team excluding Vanderbilt left on our schedule and Clemson. But my question to you is, do you think the Gamecocks can maybe find a way to get to bowl eligibility. I mean, their offense wasn't the issue, but they just could not buy a stop on defense. Just
Boy,
up and down the field. It was a track meet.
yeah.
So,
Well, I think it's plausible. I don't think it's tough though. I'm looking at this. So you need to get 4 wins, and it's so funny. Just a real quick couple of finals here. Jacksonville State just beat Western Kentucky. They were behind, and then they managed to score the only 10 points of the second half in the fourth quarter to take the lead and win 20-17. Reason I bring that up is because that's one of the supposed gimmies for South Carolina's back half of the schedule, and Vanderbilt. So those two, I mean, Vanderbilt's weird. I mean, again, they scored more points than I think people expected against Georgia, but they're still Vanderbilt. I haven't seen anything that's made me think like, oh wow, they're gonna. So I think South Carolina's got probably at least 2 wins there, because Jacksonville State's fun to watch. They're playing pretty well for a team that just moved up, but I think against South Carolina they're going to get outclassed. But then we're trying to find 2 more wins with at Mizzou, which I think it'll be tough. Mizzou seems to be getting stronger, despite that LSU loss.
but defensively, they haven't showed a whole lot either.
It's true. They'll just fire a bunch of weapons at you, and you either have to keep up or stop it, which is it seems to be difficult because they've got such talent, especially at receiver. But boy,
Also, I heard that one of their middle linebackers was out this weekend on Saturday.
I'm not going to say it's impossible to win there. I think South Carolina certainly has come close to has certainly had the ability to kind of knock a team out. Of course, Kentucky's the other one. All right, pardon me. Let me go through these. So you got to beat, the wins have to be found either at Mizzou, at Texas A&M. Texas A&M is so chaotic right now. Who knows? I mean, it would be fascinating because I think if South Carolina managed to beat Texas A&M, that might be the game that really starts the. I mean, I think those who take some joy out of watching what's going on at A&M right now would be the game that they would all be gloriously circling and looking forward to that. But their defense, unfortunately, at A&M is still pretty damn strong, and that could be a big problem for the Gamecocks. The Gamecocks versus the Gamecocks, we've already talked about that. Jacksonville State, I'm not sure that they're not as bad as you would expect, but they're still probably not going to be able to outclass South Carolina. Vanderbilt, probably a win at home. Kentucky and Clemson are the two that, I mean, Clemson isn't that bad. I think that's the thing. I mean, it was so funny because Dabo had a quote that I just saw. It's like one of the more bigger posts on our CFB, is that he said, we're at a point where if you don't go undefeated, you're losers, you're terrible. That's just such a terrible mindset. This is Dabo's talking. And honestly, maybe we need to lose a few games to lighten up the bandwagon. So maybe one of those games will be you guys. But I think people are having fun. Like he's confirmed he's going to lose more games, but or maybe he's just doing the little Clemson thing that he liked that you sometimes hear. But going back to South Carolina, it's a rivalry game. It's possible, certainly. It's at home in Williams-Brice, so it could be possible. But the 4 is hard to find. I got to admit, it's kind of hard to find those 4 wins. It's been a tough schedule too. I mean, dang, playing North Carolina to open the season, no one I think realized how good North Carolina was going to seem. I mean, because they were in ranked in the 20s in that game, and now look at them now. I think Mizzou, similarly, no one expected Mizzou to be that strong, and so now you guys are headed there, and they're a tougher team than I think people expected. It's not a hot seat program. It's like, oh my gosh, they actually are aiming at potentially more than they expected. So part of it just feels like South Carolina kind of unexpectedly has a bad draw in terms of the schedule, just of who they're playing this season.
Well, this year, do you think if they do, let's say they go 5-7, miss out on a bowl game, is that a failure in year 3 of Shane Beamer, or how does that sort of reflect on his tenure? Because I'm sure, I mean, there was some amount of expectations after the way Spencer Rattler played to end the season last year, and I mean, he's continued his hot streak. He has some of the best numbers for a quarterback in the SEC, in the nation, actually, and I mean, I think he'll be a first or second round pick, but you just feel like, watching the defense go out there and look like they don't want to be there. They don't know what they're doing. We're whiffing tackles on 4th and 11. We can't get off the field, in any situation. It's just frustrating. It feels like we're wasting, the most talented quarterback we've ever had here.
Boy, doesn't that sound like another Oklahoma quarterback, former Oklahoma quarterback right now? This season, I'm just thinking of Caleb over at USC, the other USC. But yeah, no, I mean, it's frustrating. I get it. I think after last 2 seasons of going to a bowl, I think obviously that first season was impressive to see him get to the Mayo Bowl. Last season, you saw an incremental improvement, one more win. This season, if it ends up being a letdown, I think it's disappointing, but not crushing, only because of I think some factors that I don't think anyone would have planned on. I think if North Carolina continues to look as good as it does, if Mizzou somehow, if Mizzou wins and they continue to keep winning, again, that was an unexpected victory. I mean, that was an unexpected power to play. Florida is a tough one. The way that whole game ended was just brutal, I think, for South Carolina fans, and I get that. But, I mean, it's tough. I mean, this is going to be a season where South Carolina feels more like a middle SEC team than reaching as high as they were hoping. But I would be patient, but it would be a disappointment. But I think I wouldn't necessarily toss Beamer or anything at the end. I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but maybe then you'd have to reconsider maybe some of the coordinators and maybe some of the strategy that the team is implementing.
There has been some talk among the fan base about bringing back Coach Will Muschamp to be the defensive coordinator at South Carolina. Do you think he would take the job if offered?
Boy, that would be a weird one, wouldn't it, though? I mean, because he's got a pretty nice gig right now. If anything, I think the only thing that could possibly pull him from Georgia would be another head coaching job. That I would be shocked if he left Georgia at this point, unless something we didn't know is making him really upset there. I mean, could South Carolina even outbid Georgia? I mean, because can you imagine if that came up? You figure Georgia, especially with the sheer excitement behind the program, would be able to get the money it would take to keep him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. That was mainly just a meme. Obviously,
Okay.
I don't even think if he was offered that he would take it.
Yeah, that would be a weird one. That would be such a strange one.
The next guy on my list personally is Mel Tucker. I don't think the athletics department is going to be willing to pay Mel Tucker and hire him with sort of the situation he had going on at Michigan State. But I mean, he certainly has a track record of developing, elite defenses in college. Maybe not the best head coach, but he's obviously looking for a job right now, you would think.
Yeah, that would be an awkward hire, especially immediately right afterwards. That almost seems like something that Texas A&M would do under Jimbo just to get somebody. Because when you look at who they hired as their coordinators, they certainly don't. They don't hesitate to deal with some of the issues there. Because DJ Durkin he can coach a defense, but damn, you're willing to go with that particular backstory there. But I mean, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out. There's a couple of other coaches there that could work out as well. But hopefully,
I have a small amount of hope going into Missouri, but ultimately, I think we're going to fall short again. But you never know. The Missouri-South Carolina series has been one of the weirder ones in college football over the past years. Missouri normally gets us when we're, ranked. So, maybe we can do a little role reversal here and get them when they're having a good season.
Well, we'll see on Saturday. I'm looking forward to it. I just want to
right.
I want to mention on a lighter note, Ski Masks Murphy actually dug up the photo of that statue in Eureka Springs I've been talking about, which is actually a more flattering photo than what it's like to see it on the ground. I'll say that much. Because on the ground it looks ominous when you look up at it. Because I went to the park, I went and saw it and got a nice photo of it. I remember the funniest thing I ever heard about it was somebody called it Our Lady of the Milk Carton with Arms. So again, pay a good sculptor. That's the lesson. One thing, let's see here. Oh, there's one last person who wants to come up. I'll let you up and you'll be our last speaker, Reese. As I'm letting you up, I just want to make sure I touched on some of the things. One of the quotes that came up in the last 24 hours, at least on our CFB, was apparently Urban Meyer said he's not going to coach college football again. he has no desire, and I believe he said that at a quarterback club in Knoxville. It was being, I believe, asked about the Michigan State job, so I wonder if he just feels that in this exact moment, or if he's being genuine about some of the family, the tension of being away from family and all of that stuff, and maybe he's grown to like his TV gig. But boy, you say that, Urban, and then are we going to then suddenly be seeing you introduced as the next head coach of the Texas A&M Aggies? I don't know. I don't want to wish that in existence necessarily, but we'll see. It's interesting to see that somebody got Urban to say he has no interest. But in my mind, that's just for now. Oh, by the way, light jokes. Liberty again. They came back from behind to defeat Middle Tennessee and continue to go undefeated in what is, I mean, again, widely considered the easiest schedule in college football. So there's probably no serious threat that they're going to be a New Year's Six contender unless a couple of other teams lose. They had a really interesting uniform reveal. All gas, no brakes with these uniforms in front of a Buick. People are debating what type of Buick it is. I've heard Buick Regal at a Sheetz gas station. So at the pumps, I know Sheetz is like a convenience store, but that was kind of, again, that was one of those amusing tweets to see out there. Let's see here. Ski Master Murphy, I saw you unmute. Did you want to add something real quick?
I was gonna say the worst part is I know exactly where like that Sheets is located.
The funny thing is there's like cars in the background. So like not the car they took. Yeah, so were people just like watching this guy dressed up as a football player? Presumably one of their players with like professional photography crew following around in a gas station parking lot. And are we gonna find pictures online of people from their cars like, dude, you're not gonna believe what's happening in front of me right now?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure some people are gonna post it because like the gas station they did it at, it looked familiar. I was like, that's the Sheets that's like right off the main highway that runs through town. So yeah, it was weird. It was.
Yeah, I just got to say, Liberty has a nice facility. We sent a reporter to cover a game there a couple of weeks ago, and he said like he had just finished a game at Virginia Tech and at North Carolina State, and they threw so much money at it that he's like, this is a great facility to watch football. So, good. They got all the money, and they take pictures at a gas station, but cool. I mean, you do you. At least the colors were nice in the background. So what's up, Reese?
First of all, I don't know where that Sheets is because I haven't been there in 5 years, and last time I was there, it was not there.
I guess off the highway. But what's going on?
A few things real quick. I want LSU to play Iowa in the bowl game, just to see what happens. I just think it'd be a really funny game. Maybe Iowa scores more than 25 points. Who knows? I don't know. My big question though was when ODU beats App State this weekend, is ODU JMU going to be on ESPN next weekend? Because that will be for the top of the Sun Belt East, I believe.
Boy, that is, and I know you're a passionate ODU fan. Actually, you're not the only passionate ODU fan, and I see John's hands up here too. So we'll let him in here for a second. But gosh, JMU. First of all, they are one of the fun stories of the season, aren't they? I mean, the fact that
they're getting hosed by the NCAA.
They are. They and to a lesser extent Jacksonville State. But again, they can't play in the Sun Belt Championship game. They can't play in a bowl, but they can go undefeated, and that's totally within their rights. But that ESPNU game, it's a Saturday game, so it's. I could see them maybe moving it, but I'm not sure. I didn't know it's called the Royal Rivalry. That's absolutely fabulous. James Madison versus. I'm trying to figure out the why it's the Royal Rivalry. Is it because of the color?
The Dukes are royalty, James Madison, Monarchs are royalty. It's Virginia. Come on,
I know, but James Madison was a president. I mean, so
I know.
Yeah, but
don't question it, please.
It's cool. I mean, I kind of would hope to see it. I want to see more James Madison. That's kind of where I'm at right now. So I'm excited for them. I hope they win out. If Old Dominion manages to win that game, which is by of course possible. I'd be curious to see if they move it off of ESPNU, but it'll be tough. It'll be who they're competing against. But a night game does help there. John, what did you want to add to this? I know you're also an ODU guy.
Yeah, I was actually going to say what you just said, Bob. The game got moved. It's going to be 7:00 ESPNU next Saturday. I think if we beat Appalachian State, I would hope maybe we get a better channel offering. I mean, ESPN is really good already. And give it this idea to the JMU ODU rivalry name. I know some fans we've been calling it the Royal Rumble. It's because
Yes.
the JMU are called the Dukes, ODU is called the Monarchs, and so that's where the Royal Rumble name comes from.
That makes sense. That makes total sense. And Royal Rumble sounds awesome as a classic
Yeah.
I was a WWF fan throughout my whole childhood, when they were still called the WWF. But that would be that would be awesome.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, App State though, who knows who beats App State? They are the wildest team to watch. I mean, win or lose, it's going to be chaos. I mean, they've lost a game in double overtime at North Carolina. They lost that close with that crazy ending at Wyoming. They beat ULM in that wild finish, and then they lost to Coastal Carolina close. I mean, nothing. So I expect a close. I guess that is a safe bet. Whatever, win or lose, it's going to be a close game with Old Dominion this weekend.
Well, if you really look at it, ODU's only been out of one game this year. They should be Wake Forest, should be Marshall, should probably be one loss right now.
I think that speaks to the fun and the parody of the Sun Belt right now. Sun Belt's easily the best G5 to watch. They're the most entertaining.
But all we need is JMU finishes first, we finish second, give us Sun Belt championship.
And speaking of ESPNU, at least you're not stuck on Peacock, because that's the best thing you can say. I mean, at least it's on terrestrial TV. It's so funny too, because I think, gosh, there's some state senator in Ohio that announced his intention, like the nonsense that comes up in state legislatures. I mean, things that would probably get destroyed if they're challenged in a court. But he's trying to introduce legislation to stop Ohio's public colleges and universities from airing sporting events exclusively on streaming platforms. And, my favorite reply was this. Bounce Man is one of these users on our CFB. This is a pretty roundabout way to avoid paying for Peacock, but I respect it. But yeah, I think people are.
If he needs a Peacock login, I'll give him mine.
we'll just tweet it out.
If you're down
Everyone,
bad,
here
just
you
say
go.
you're down bad. just say you're down bad. Damn. But no, I really think ODU can beat App this weekend if the right Grant Wilson shows up, and then can beat JMU, maybe. Is that South Carolina fan still here?
He is.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. On your roster, how many Virginia players are there?
A lot. We have a pipeline coming
good,
in
because
from
who your coach, who your coach's father is. I want to make sure that was still happening. Because if not, I would take you on that, because obviously his last name's Beamer.
Well, we got one of the number one players, edge players, Dylan Stewart in the country from DC, Maryland, coming in next year, and then obviously Nick Harbor is on the team. He made a great catch last week, but the defense let me down. Bad.
How many players from
still
the
sad
Hampton
about
Roads, Norfolk, Virginia Beach area do you have? Do you know?
I'm not exactly sure. Probably.
Yeah, that's such a rich hotbed of recruiting. I'm going to slowly start wrapping this up. Ski Mask Superman, I saw your hand up. Did you want to add something before we start wrapping up here?
I was just going to ask, did a senator in Ohio really try to do that?
Yeah, they always say that, and no, it's a real headline that some guy, some state legislator out there wants to introduce that. But I mean, a lot of that stuff is just the nonsense they do at the state level to get attention.
I guess that historically fits the bill for the state of Ohio, because they did put LeBron James basketball games on pay-per-view service.
Did they?
In high school. So I guess it's just keeping.
I remember
make sure
that. God, I do remember that. I still remember how all the hype when he was in high school. I was in law school at the time, and that would just come up, and I'd just be like,
"Can we force all Youngstown State games on linear TV?"
Youngstown State, the Penguins.
Yeah, I want to see the Penguins. Yeah,
absolutely, that would be awesome.
Hey, real quick before you shut this down,
yeah,
have you watched any of these CW games?
I have not watched a game on the CW, but it's always hilarious when the game ends up on the CW, and most of the conversation ends up being, how did we end up on the CW?
Louisville Pitt was on the CW last weekend. I just want to make you guys aware of something called the Thunder Flash. Apparently, it's a TV show. Apparently, CW is where all the really terrible comic book shows go to die.
Oh my goodness! Well, that almost sounds like the lineup I would watch when the WB first came on. All right, well, I'm going to slowly start wrapping this up. Let's see here, just a couple of, let's see if there's any parting comments we want to make here with some of the, one thing I wanted to mention, Brett McMurphy, love his reporting. Apparently Miami, and it's probably not involving football, but it just made people kind of pause, has announced a strategic multi-year partnership, making the islands of the Bahamas the official destination partner of Miami athletics. So the idea of a exhibition game where the Bahamas Bowl is played would be amusing, although some people have joked that Miami is aiming for the Bahamas Bowl as their bowl game, which obviously probably wouldn't work out. I still think a P5 should use that bowl, but it's Conference USA versus MAC. So we'll see where that goes.
Could they beat a Bahamas Bowl team?
I'm pretty sure Miami of Ohio suddenly now looks like the strongest team in the MAC, and their only loss was to Miami. So
the rematch.
Yeah, okay. The rematch. There you go. Let's see here. Just wanted to also just shout out UNLV for having such a strong start to their season. Meanwhile, their arch rival in Reno is having just a complete chaos of a season. Air Force is undefeated, but they did lose their it hasn't been specified how long, because again, the Air Force likes to keep pretty buttoned up. Their quarterback has been lost for, quote, a while after an injury in last week's victory against Wyoming. Wyoming's still out there, but I think they're out of the New Year's Six race because of the two losses. Both strong losses. I mean, you lose to Texas and you lose to Air Force, two teams that are looking impressive right now. But we'll see how Air Force does. Luckily, they get a fairly weak Navy team. They've got a slightly tougher game after that, and then they got Army, which also is looking terrible. Army was shut out last weekend by Troy. That was the first time Army got shut out since 2003. For those who remember, that 2003 Army team was horrendous. That was the first team to ever go 0-13 when that 13-game season was possible. Thanks, I believe, to the Hawaii. They must have played at Hawaii and got that Hawaii extra game due to the Hawaii rule, where if you play at Hawaii in a non-conference game, you get an extra game as a way to offset the travel costs to go to Hawaii. Let's see what a couple of other kind of minor notes. I mean, we talked about Iowa a bit, but just one last thought. It was fun to see that when somebody did the numbers and the total number of comments, because when obviously Notre Dame beat USC, some of you may have heard about that. I certainly did, but that somebody analyzed the game thread, because thousands and thousands and thousands of comments are made on these game threads when they go live on our CFB. And it was amazing. There were 1,300 comments by USC flares, people who put USC as their fan base, and 2,000 comments by people who are Oklahoma fans. So it was fun to see how much they enjoy following that and Lincoln Riley's kind of wild ride. And the previous week, Lincoln said a lot of things that made it seem like he wasn't really interested in staying in college for the long haul, but we'll see how that goes. Anyways, that was the kind of a place we'll go ahead and wrap this up. We've been going for about an hour and a half when we typically go for an hour. I don't mind. It's great to hear from all of you. This was our CFB Talk 162. I wanted to thank everyone who joined us. It was wonderful to hear from all of you, and we covered the gamut. It was great to also have that quick visit by Stephen J. Gaither, the creator of HBCU Game Day. I recommended. On behalf of all of us at RCFB, I'm Bobak Ha'Eri. This was RCFB Talk 162. I'm going to hang up and listen.